honey.
Hi, Shiva.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
So, everyone, this is Marnie, and this is a very, very, very dear, beloved friend of mine. I said to him last night, we've known each other for nearly 10 years now. I met you when I was like 24, 25.
A little girl.
Yeah, I
So
know.
innocent.
Yeah, he met me when I was a little girl. And I have such respect for this being, not just as a human being, but as a man. And I have started to do, I've got the snuffles. I've started to do a little interview series. I did a video with my best friend Thomas a few days ago. You can see that on my page, where we spoke about intimacy and sensuality shared in a platonic friendship between a man and a woman. So that's a really beautiful conversation. And now I wanted to chat with this guy about men. And this is inspired by a conversation we had last night or the night before. And I've been going through a journey in my own relationship, as you do, because that's the whole point of relationship in many ways, is the journey and discovering things about yourself and really recognizing what's aligned, what's not aligned, how you want to be met, and the stages of life that one is in around how we are or are not met. And so this has been a really big journey for me the past 6 months. And when I was chatting with Shiva the other day, we were having a dialogue around what is a mature man, what is a mature masculine. And there's a part of me that feels a bit cringy when I say masculine and feminine, because there's a lot of binary concepts that we can flunk into, and some of the definitions within masculine and feminine I'm not such a fan of. But when we talk about masculine, I just want to talk about a man, a male body. Yes, we are talking in kind of binary terms here, but I'm a woman, he is a man, and so we're having a conversation in that context.
Love it.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I just wanted to, it's going to be an emergent conversation inspired by a theme. But maybe Shiva can introduce himself briefly to the people that will see this in our field. Who are you?
Yeah, so I've been here in Bali for like 10 years, and I'm really passionate about all the field of Tantra and the exploration of human dynamics. I've been a coach like for 20 years now, 22 years, and before that in full-on spiritual exploration. So this has been really a lifelong exploration. And right now those models about mature masculine and mature feminine, and how to create polarity with each other, what are the things that really create magnetism and deep connections between us. Those are topics that I teach actively on. I have sessions on that, so it's really something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, and what I love about the people in my field is how coherent their life is in what they teach. You know, there's such a beautiful level of embodied leadership where the way that they lead is the way that they live, and I can definitely say that for Shiva, for sure. And
thank you.
I just love the wisdom and the beauty that I receive from him, and the love that we get to share in our friendship. It's such a solid rock in my life over the years.
I love it.
Yeah. It's so cool. And yeah, I guess let's jump into the conversation. I'm just feeling into what feels most true, and like I can notice that there's a part of me that is wanting to exclude my personal pieces out of this, and yet there's also a piece that I want to speak to, because I do work with women. My community is mainly women with the Somatic Institute for Women, and this is on my personal little Instagram, but I know many of you are here. And I think just from a woman's perspective, what I have noticed happening, like I'm 34 now, I'm nearly 35, And I am seeing a similar theme among my friends, my girlfriends at this age, where we feel really ready for a relationship with a man who is able to meet the level of depth and commitment and integration that we are holding after doing 10, 15 years of a lot of inner work, psychologically, spiritually, sexually, somatically. And it's not easy. And I find most of my girlfriends who are single meeting the same challenges of coming up faced with men where they're not ready, and it feels like takes a long time for a man to feel ready and dropped into deeply meeting a woman who is ready to be met deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's originally where our conversation came from. So I just wanted to segue in here, and I want to have a conversation about men and understanding men, and I'm totally generalizing here as well, of course, but I am speaking from a lot of different imprints, and I wanted to ask you also to open up the field of empathy and understanding for us as human beings around what is the journey for you. You work with men, you've worked with probably thousands of men over the years in your coaching and your retreats and workshops, and I'm curious if you do see a certain archetypal journey, a certain patterning of men as women do as well. I mean, if I also track my journey from 18 till now, there's been a huge journey of identity and expressing myself in certain ways and that being dissolved. So what is it for you? What are the patterns that you've seen within yourself and men of their journey of maturing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first question actually is, what is a mature man for you in your embodied understanding and experience?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. So for me, the way I experience the mature masculine is very symbolically. We will have a pillar, a vertical pillar, and you have the light and the darkness, right? The light and the darkness, and we are made of both light and darkness. And within the light and the darkness, we have shadows. We have things that are unresolved. We have toxicity. We have aspects of ourselves that are immature. And so, for me, the journey is how can I take, or how can I experience life from a place of greater maturity. It means when I see that there are certain immature patterns inside of me, which might be, lying or getting really controlling or having a lack of emotional balance and a lack of emotional integrity, for instance, how can I take that and then transform and transmute that into maturity? And that's going to be applied in all areas of my life, in business, in relationships, in dating, in the way I use my body. For instance, if I have behaviors that are very addictive to me, those are going to be shadows, right, that are going to be self-destructive. How to transmute that into behaviors that are going to be more sustainable for my body on the long term. So being super healthy and super anchored. The same with relationships. For instance, if I am in relationships and I tend to create a lot of toxicity, how can I stop creating toxicity and create much more harmony in my relationships, right? So it's a whole journey, it's a lifelong journey. The way I teach Tantra and the way I approach all that is the ultimate goal is to become masters of our lives. And that doesn't mean not having challenges, not having shadows, not having problems arising, but simply coming to a point where most of our life areas are no longer an issue. There is nothing major there that needs to be solved. Money is not an issue, relationship and love is not an issue, sex is great, I can take care of my body, I can take care of my spiritual reality, my relationship to the invisible, my mind is strong. So this is how I define life mastery. So a mature man for me is somebody who has been reaching a certain level of mastery in all these areas of life. And this, of course, is going to impact the relationships in love life.
So when you talk about, there was one thing that you said It's weird, like looking at you through a screen
Yeah.
and not here.
Yeah.
So you said, you know, it's not about not being human. Basically, when you're
Yes.
when you're mature in your maturity, it's. I mean, everything you said, I would say the same applies as a woman,
Of course.
with some nuances and tweaks. But the thing that comes up for me is, yes, we're going to have emotions and shadows because that's a big part of being a human. For me, maturing is, how am I relating to those things? Like, what is my relationship to my emotions? What is my relationship to my shadows? Am I denying that I have a shadow and pointing the finger and blaming you for the problem,
Yes.
rather than saying, like, you know what, I did manipulate you just then because I feel needy
Mhm.
right now, right? And yeah, I feel really vulnerable, for
Mhm.
instance. Like, there's a maturity in not needing to deflect responsibility and accountability for our experience and blame others. Like, this is an example that I'm giving, yeah?
Exactly.
And for me, maturity as a woman in my sexuality was moving through the journey of not throwing my sexual energy around, not in terms of having sex with people, but leaking my sexual energy out in order to get the sense of validation from men. You know, to feel desired from men because that's what filled me up. That was definitely a shadow of mine. And the maturing is learning that I don't have to subconsciously objectify myself in order to feel worthy, and especially from the male gaze, right? So I'm curious for you, on an emotional and a sexual level,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see the journey? Because this very much relates to the relational field. So I'd like to ask you, what has your journey been of maturing, let's say first emotionally, and then we can go to sexually?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the core things I love what you're describing there of having a relationship with our own emotions, right, and our relationship with those different aspects of our lives. So the core element for me when I talk about emotional maturity, for instance, on a mind level, right, on an emotional level, on an energy level, how to master that specific part. For me, there is a huge difference between having an emotion which is a shadow emotion, for instance, anger, right, and being dominated by the anger, being enslaved by the anger, or being master of the anger, right? When I'm master of my anger and I am master of my rage, this is going to turn into something that is a positive creative force. It is going to have a positive impact in my life and around me. Whereas when I'm dominated and enslaved by those emotions, then that's when I'm in an immature or toxic state or toxic space. So for me, the core element was is that right now, am I enslaved by this emotion, or am I master of that emotion? So how does that apply in relationships? For instance, I might get triggered by something that is happening in a relationship, and how does the trigger how is it expressed? For instance, the first step that I would take is first witness, oh, there is a trigger coming to the surface. The second step, breathe through it, start transmuting the trigger, for instance, right? And then eventually move to a place where the trigger can be expressed and released, or have an interesting and mature conversation about it with my partner. But what this means is that the whole journey of energetic and emotional mastery is something that takes a long time. It's like from the moment I started working on these things, probably 20 years ago, and now I have the feeling that I have a greater sense of understanding and
20
mastery
years
of it.
later.
Yeah, but the thing that is really interesting is that it's not something that I can learn from books. It's not something that I can rationalize. It's like I'm going to be exposed to situations in life that are going to bring the potential challenges to the surface, and it's in the process of integration in those very specific moments that I'm going to discover what is my level of maturity and how can I navigate all that. So life, this is something that we say in Tantra. Tantra doesn't happen in the classroom. It doesn't happen when we're having a workshop. Tantra is the full dimension of life, absolutely all the full dimension of what's happening in our lives. Everything is a learning or discovery opportunity. And so this is the way I look at it. And I notice that every person or every man is going to have their own experience. Something that I noticed, for instance, in the masculine field, that I would say it's an unintegrated shadow. It's a sense of, there are a few of them. There is at least 20, 30, or 40 potential shadows that are mostly unintegrated in the masculine. And one of them, for instance, is the rigidity of the mind. Being very dogmatic with things. This is the way things are. And there is no flexibility and no fluidity around that, right? For instance, if I have a woman in my life and she invites me to a new experience or to a new exploration, in my mature masculine, I need to be able to be fluid with that. And be like, oh, that's interesting, and maybe we should explore that, rather than being too rigid. So that's one aspect. Another one is entering into reactive mode. Another one, not being able to listen, not being able to be present with emotions that come to the surface. There is a vast range of possibilities. And what I want to do, to say as well, is that I really want to acknowledge the masculine today. The brothers who are in my life, the men who are in my life, are all trying their best.
Yeah.
Men are really eager to explore and to become the best versions of themselves. So when there is a kind of narrative going on in our social circles, which is, where are all the men? Why aren't they showing up? Well, I can tell you that they are really showing up. You might not see it as a woman, you might not be exposed or see the value of what they are creating, but men are fucking showing up as like rock stars, especially in these conscious communities. They are evolving, they want to be the best version of themselves, and they are really caring, human beings. Making a woman happy is really one of the greatest gifts that we can access.
What did you say?
Making a woman happy is one of the greatest gifts that we can give really to each other, and it makes us feel like on top of the world.
I love
right?
that. A question that's coming up for me is, what is the maturity process for you of understanding what safety is within a relationship?
Mm-hmm.
What is emotional? We were talking about this the other day, where
Yes.
you were reflecting on a previous relationship, and years later you had realized, like, fuck, I didn't create this particular type of safety, and now I understand it, and I bring it in all the time to any relationship that I'm having.
Yes.
And that's a process of maturing and understanding. So I'd love to hear what you feel over the course of time safety means in a relationship with a woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So what you're referring to is really being able to create a very safe container for each other, especially the part that I would play in this relationship, right? That's what you're asking. So what I notice is this: it is that my choices, what I say, how I express myself, my emotional system when I'm in the presence of a woman is going to impact this woman very profoundly. For instance, if I'm with a woman and I'm constantly, being, well, I don't know if we can be together or not, and I just want to be free and so on, this is going to create a field which is not very safe for the relationship. And so it's not a foundation that is very strong. It means that the pillars of the relationship are not very strongly established. Whereas if I go with a woman, and my understanding is this, it is that every woman wants to be chosen. Every woman. You see, as soon as I say that, look at the smile that comes into her face, right? Why? Because this is like the nectar. And the moment I say this, if I say to a woman, I choose you, it's like there is something that unlocks inside of her that is going to create a sense of safety. So in my earlier relationships, it's not something that I was accessing. I was not voicing these things, not because I was
Did you
not...
feel it, but you just didn't know how to say it? I'm also
I didn't
curious
have,
about
I
that.
didn't have the awareness.
You didn't-
I
you just
didn't
wasn't
know
there.
that this was one of the keys,
Yeah.
And then eventually, discovering. And one day I remember very well the first time I said that, and I remember the sense of relaxation, that happened in the relationship as well, where suddenly we could really drop in a little bit deeper. So if I'm engaging sexually with a woman and the container is not established in a clear, powerful, and well-grounded way, then there is going to be a sense of instability that is going to stop my partner from fully opening up,
Yeah.
fully showing up for me as well. And then we're going to be like holding back,
Yeah.
and the relationship is only going to engage maybe at 50% of its potential, not more, because there isn't going to be a sense of safety. It's not just in the words, but also in the intention, you know. It's like, when I'm with a woman, what I want is to establish a profound connection with that person.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying things or doing things that are going to trigger her, that are going to create an emotional reaction, I would rather shift from trigger to glimmers. Right? This is the word that we're using now. We want to glimmerize each other. We want to really to realize that we are alchemists to each other. And I notice that all the time in sessions that I have with couples. It's like I can see the man or the woman starting to engage into a certain narrative, and I say, look at your partner. What do you notice? Well, they're shutting down. They are getting defensive. Why are they getting defensive? Well, because they're under attack. You know, if I'm glorified by my woman, if I receive lots of gratification and lots of appreciation, my system is going to relax. So give each other more appreciation, less criticism, highlight the positives, positive reinforcement of the qualities that are really working. So those are a little bit some of the dynamics that we want to look at and realize that we are really alchemists
Yeah.
towards each other states, energy states.
I love this so much. It's such a paradigm shift in understanding, because I work with the nervous system, so I have a deep relationship with the attachment system and nervous system in relationship, and I love when we are in an understanding of what one another's attachment system is and how it plays out. Like, are you avoidant? Am I anxious? Am I having a different form of an attachment system that is quite erratic and destabilized a lot of the time? So when we understand that, we can understand how we can support and influence each other to feel safe, and also with our nervous systems. And I never really put it in this idea of, yeah, you can ask your question, pop it in, and we can answer it in a moment. So the state shifts and the understanding of each other's stories that we have inside of us, the consciousness around that is creating alchemy, and the way that the tone that we speak, the way that we look at each other, that moment of gratitude or presence, or that thank you, or that coming home and giving a hug versus not giving a hug. This is all the alchemy that's being created, and I just love this so much. It really gives a different definition of, not just because it dismantles the sense of separation. This is what I'm trying to get at, is the idea of being alchemists in a relationship. Let's go of this false idea that we are separate, that we are separate beings. We are very much influencing each other all the time.
For sure.
And to take responsibility of how we are influencing each other. So
Beautiful.
I love this.
How do you
a lot.
experience it in your relationships? Like, precisely, is there a peak moment where you felt like your partner was really nailing it? Something that you might have said, something
For me, it's the same thing all the time.
Yes?
And it's the code that I have cracked in all relationships. It's a thing called empathy.
Here we go.
Empathy. This is a fucking game changer for me. What I have found, especially in relational conflict with my partner, as I'm suffering, my suffering comes because I don't feel seen. It's not like, oh, you're doing this to me. It's like, I need to feel seen in my experience. And as soon as I get empathy, a lot of the charge is gone. Like, if they're doing something that I don't want them to do, right? It's not, the tension isn't like you're doing something that I don't want you to do. Yes, that's hard. But when there's like you're overreacting, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, or you're not letting me be X, Y, and Z, and there's a understanding of where the actual pain is coming from, I've noticed time and time and time and time and time again, once there has been a downregulation of emotion and we can sit as two people and see each other, we're back in connection.
Exactly.
So for me, I'm always looking at, for relational safety, where can we be in connection? I can be really angry with you, but still in connection.
It's such
and-
a key, yeah.
And I've also had to learn that it's okay to not be in connection all the time. It's, you know, there's aspects of my own anxious attachment system that the safety comes from making sure that we're connected, and I've also explored that. And there's another piece of understanding, basically, when we're in conflict, we don't have to be on the other side of the room. We can actually be together and come from a place of understanding each other and seeing one another's points of view and seeing each other's experiences, because often I found when we're in conflict, we're just trying to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. We're trying to be seen all the fucking time. And if we could just get over ourselves in that moment, which is not easy, and that's why it's okay to have arguments. But for me, it's like after the argument, how do you repair?
Mm-hmm.
And repair and safety comes from empathy.
Yeah,
for me
exactly.
specifically, like, my pussy gets wet when someone expresses empathy to me. When I feel seen in my experience, and that's a very intrinsic need of mine. It might not be everyone's
no.
need, but I think it's a human need.
I think it's universal.
It's universal.
I always experienced it.
Yeah.
It's like if you're having a challenging response to something that I might be doing, then I go like, yeah, I can see that this is challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and so
Ah! I don't know what's going on. Maybe the internet's just got weird for a moment. Okay, cool.
no, it's good.
Yeah.
So simply acknowledging that, acknowledging your energy state or acknowledging your emotions, and simply validating that rather than denying your energetic or emotional state. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
take a breath.
it's an art. It's really an art form to be able to voice that, because it's going to be uncomfortable. If the emotion that you are experiencing is something that I don't want to see,
Yeah,
right, or want to deny,
Yeah,
showing.
exactly. I want to shift the focus for a moment on this idea of freedom for men,
Mm-hmm.
because this is a very big difference I have found between men and women. I've had processes in my life, and actually about 2 years ago I was in this experience where I needed to be free, but my freedom, it wasn't about I need to be free to fuck whoever comes my way, or it had nothing to do with sex, for instance. It had a lot to do with being in the unknown and being in the mystery. And I went off, and I didn't know when I was in Europe from one day to the next what was going on in my life, and I really needed to be in that state. And freedom's a very interesting and controversial and provocative word, I think, in general, because we have a lot of ideas of what freedom is, and I think that that's just a whole nother interesting conversation to have. But what I do find is that there is a general tendency for men to have this need of freedom, and especially around the period before potentially having a child or committing to a relationship. And this is a piece of the archetypal journey that I want to touch on and gain empathy and more understanding around, because as a woman it's really fucking hard to hear this. It's painful, and there's also understanding in it. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts on freedom and the evolution of freedom. Like, maybe freedom to you 10 years ago is different to what it is for you now, specifically relationally. I don't want to talk about like spiritual freedom or anything like that, but freedom in a relationship, not in a relationship. What is this? What makes a man not ready? Let's say.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing to understand when you put yourself from the man's perspective, I've been coaching men on breakup and divorce for a
Hi
long time.
Daisy, remember Daisy?
Daisy,
Do you
Oh,
get
yeah.
me, Daisy?
Yes.
Love you, Daisy.
Hi, Daisy. So when you look at it from the man's perspective, right, the man's angle, and what I've seen through men going through breakups and divorces, the thing to understand is this: it is that, for instance, in the U.S., 80% of divorces are going to be initiated by women, and then when the divorce happens and you have children, then the man is going to be put in a very challenging position, very often, in places where co-parenting is not being necessarily being pushed forward, and the woman takes control of the family unit, and the man has to pay money for the rest of his life, or the next 20 years of his life, to children and supporting a family that he's no longer part of, not directly. So there are lots of dynamics over there that men get a bit scared or don't want to be exposed to, because it's a recurring pattern. And so behind the fear, or behind the lack of commitment, or behind the desire for men to be free, there is something that is a valid, really high risk for man to lose his independence and identity, and then to be able to need to feed 50% of his energy into something that has collapsed in the past. So that fear that is in the back of men's minds is very strong. It's like, if a woman comes to me and says, I want to have a child with you, I mean, I really need to know that this woman is not going to turn against me 10 years later, and I've been investing my time, energy, and life, and then the legal system works against me, and then suddenly I'm trapped into a situation that is very destructive for my system. So that perspective is there all the time in the back of our minds, and sometimes we don't want to see it, and then we push it away, and that's the reality. The other thing to understand it is that the belief here that we're talking about, and I think there is a little bit of a bias over here, is that women want to commit and men don't want to commit.
Yeah, that's like that's the narrative that I'm trying to speak to, and sort of
Exactly.
myth bust a little bit, but also understand that men and women might have different, again, we're generalizing a lot here,
Yes.
but men and women can have different journeys around maturation in a relationship as well.
Yes, exactly. So I can talk about the community that I'm in over here, right? And a lot of what I'm noticing here is like women saying, I'm waiting for the right guy. I want a man who is going to have these qualities. The man shows up with his qualities. And very, very often what I see is women running away from actually being delivered what is being delivered to them in a golden plate. Like a man is going to show up with exactly those qualities, but then there is going to be nitpicking, there is going to be little details that don't match the narrative. And the reason why I believe this is happening is because both men and women have a lot to potentially lose in getting into a really long-term relationship. And men, you go like, okay, they like their freedom, they like to go around having sex. Well, in my experience, that's very similar to women. It's not in the community. I don't see a big distinction. There is a narrative that wants to believe the opposite, but that hasn't been my experience. And one of the things that I noticed as well is that both men and women, especially in the conscious community, I'm not talking about the mainstream, but in the conscious community, both men and women are on the journey of exploration. So you, as a woman, you might have this goddess or priestess archetype. And what is this priestess archetype or this goddess archetype is like you are dedicating a big part of your energy to self-sourcing and connecting with the divine. I am a goddess. It's not like I'm in a partnership with the king. It's like I'm a goddess, and the man has to come into my life to fulfill my desires and my destiny. So there is a little bit of a distinction there. This is why I believe that when you shift from being, single, free-flowing, and being in this quest of accessing your sacred divine feminine, which is a lot of what I'm seeing over here, then you step into a relationship, suddenly there is going to be a source of control, direction, with the man who is going to come with demands, pressure, with things that this man wants to implement into your life. And so I feel like both men and women are playing precisely this game. I don't see at all in my direct circle the narrative or that women are ready, they are waiting, and men are not showing up. For me, it's like it's completely distorted. Most men who are in my field, they are craving to find a match. You know, they are craving to find a match, a woman they can trust, a woman who is going to show up not just with some form of transactional agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, you pay for everything from now on. You know, it's like that there is a level of respect and commitment and a romantic connection with each other that is really, really profound.
Yeah.
So this is to reorganize the narrative, and
Beautiful.
that's my experience of reality. Doesn't mean that it might be necessarily yours or somebody else's,
sure.
but I wanted to highlight those because to realign a little bit the narratives that I'm
For
experiencing.
sure. I love
What's your experience?
that. My experience, I mean, I live in Koh Phangan in Thailand, so it's like Disneyland for a lot of people. It's not even really a correct sense of reality. I feel living in this tropical island where a lot of people leave their corporate lives and come to explore paradise. I mean, Koh Phangan is named Tantra Island. And being someone who has lived there for 12 years and matured and grown, I've definitely seen in that particular place, which you could also say is a conscious community, that word is also questionable.
Yeah, conscious.
I don't use that word so often for the sake of the conversation. So I have found that there is a certain paradigm of being a mid-30s woman where you're not in your maiden anymore. And there's something that I have felt in direct experience through 2 different partnerships where my man has reoriented back to the maiden energy, where they've turned back to the younger woman. And that's been really fucking painful as a woman to experience. The desire of constantly feeding into maiden energy, which women also do. This is like a shadow side of the paradigms that we live in around women in general, and the feminine is, I mean, we see it through capitalism. It's always like the level of ageism that is embodied in our culture is really disturbing, and it's so normalized that we don't even really see it. But everywhere we look, it's about looking younger, looking more youthful. And as soon as you're not young and youthful anymore, you're irrelevant, right? And this is something as a mid-30s woman I heard about when I was in my 20s. I heard about it. And now I'm in my mid-30s and I'm like, oh my God, it's a thing. It's a fucking thing. I remember watching Sex and the City. I've watched Sex and the City like a million times. One of the times I watched Sex and the City, there was an episode, because they're in like their mid-30s or early 30s in Sex and the City. And one of the episodes was called The 20-Something Woman. And Kerry's partner or ex-partner had married a 26-year-old woman. And I remember there was a whole thing around the 20-something woman. And I was in my 20s back then, so I didn't really relate to it. And now I see that there is, as a woman, this misogyny, this internalized misogyny that we internalize as women. I mean, I rant about this in my school, the Somatic Institute for Women, in a much more educational way, but I can speak however I want on my personal page. So there is an internalization of only being lovable if you're in maiden energy. And what I find where I've been living is that that's very much alive. Very, very, very much alive. And it's not easy being a mid-30s woman who has done years of work, who's got her shit sorted, financially independent, got her career sorted. And I'm speaking about not just me, but multiple of my girlfriends, all in the same field, all in the same life, where it is not easy to be met, because there is kind of like the googly eyes, and fair enough, to these young girls. And I think it's been me and another girlfriend have been recently been left for a girl 10 years younger than us, you know, and they're gorgeous women and all of this stuff. It's not to put them down. I'm more just talking about the orientation. And there's a pain there. There's a pain of being a mid-30s woman where that exists. Mm-hmm. And it's real, and it does exist, and it's painful, and it's a lot of conditioning that surfaces all of that on multiple levels. Mm-hmm. And I feel more and more free from that as well. Like, I don't want to be in my maiden. I don't want to be needing to be 25 years old and seen like that. I want to be seen in the power and the wisdom that I am now. Yeah. And that is also not the number of men I feel available who can see that power. It's a handful. It's not everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I've also just realized, based on a very, very powerful conversation we had 2 nights ago, that I have been choosing relational stories, as we all do, from my trauma. And I didn't realize how deep this was running. I did not realize the men I was choosing that weren't fully choosing me or meeting me is because that's what is so familiar to me. And I'm not going to go into the nuances, but there's a piece that I'm just touching now where my whole entire resonance is changing around relationship, and I feel myself stepping into my power and integrating, where I know that this story is going to change, because we are attracting the things around us, mm-hmm. the stories around us. And of course I'm going to keep attracting that story if I'm still resonating with certain piece of that within my own nervous system, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to see how things unfold. Yes. And it's not so much about like, oh, are they ready or they're not, or there's mature women and men aren't there and they're intimating and blah, 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 everything that I just said. At the end of the day, it's also like, what am I holding inside of me? Mm-hmm. And where am I not maturing and deepening into deeper parts of myself as well, that's being reflected in my relational field? Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Can I reply to all that?
Please go. Yes. I'll be quiet now.
So the thing I want to say is this: it is that the qualities that you have when you're in your mid-30s, and I've seen you evolve over 10 years, right? It's like from being more like princess, you become a queen, right? And this evolution means that you gain a really high level of social power and presence and maturity from, you know, being at the early stages of your career and your contribution and mission into the world. You're now really grounded into that mission. And you have now reached a level of wisdom and understanding about life. I can see how when I'm in your presence, you are responding to things very different than the way you would respond 10 years ago.
Sure, like, I would hope so.
No, you have a capacity to create safety for a man, and the core element, I would say, is this element of wisdom. You know, and this is a queen quality. It's a goddess quality. And yes, of course, you know, not every man will anchor on that, but what I can tell you is that those qualities are really, really sexy, and they are really, really appealing. It means that it gives a foundation and a power to create something that is very, 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 very solid and anchored. So for all the women who are out there, you know, listening, and you feel like, oh, that's it, I'm past my prime. It's not true at all. No. The way I look at it is like, if you are 36, I don't say you are 36 years old, I say you are at level 36. You're at level 36. It means that you reach a level of maturity and power that gives you an edge in life, that gives you the power and the ability to navigate life with way more tools and possibilities, and creating much more intentional relationships. So I can tell you 100% that there are a big fraction of men, and I don't know how many, but if the ones who are showing up right now in Copenhagen are not the ones who are looking for marriage, you know, what I can tell you is that you go in New York and you go into big cities and you go in different social environments in the world, and there are going to be environments where men are waiting for queens.
Yeah.
They are waiting for mature women. They are waiting for women who can really show up with understanding and be able to intentionally design relationships together. And I'm absolutely convinced about that. Now, what I encourage you to do, if I can give you an advice, and also for the women in this, it is just if you notice, because for me it's very obvious, when I meet a man, when I see a man, I go like within 30 seconds I can tell you if that man is a player, I can tell you if that man is ready to commit or not. Like, it's very, very obvious from the start. So if you notice the elements, the reason sometimes why we pre-select and we choose men who are not, the right match for that is because those men are going to come with challenges, they are going to be a bit more bad boys, they are going to be a bit more edgy, not as grounded, and it's going to be making life and sex sometimes more interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas a man who is already well established and grounded, you might be like, okay, well, it's very predictable. If I meet that man and I start dating him now, I know what is going to happen for the next 10, 15, 20 years of my life. If I have a child with that man, but he's going to provide the safety, but a little bit less the sense of adventure. Why? The sense of adventure, because he's still a prince. The new man who comes up, he comes as a queen, as a king. He's grounded. He's ready to really ground and settle down. Well, the idea of settling down might be something that freaks out quite a few people, including women in their mid-30s. But what I can tell you is that this is not the end of the story. 35 is a beautiful age. You will be 55. You will be 65.
Can't wait.
There are, sometimes I look at a woman and she's like 65, and I look at her and say, you are radiating so much attractive power, and you are embodied, and you take care of yourself, and you're in your beauty, and you're in your prime right now. You have way more to offer. Even if we consider just the level of sexual maturity and experience, that's like, it's really precious, and it's really powerful. So there are lots of things that are being offered by women and men as well as the age.
I mean, you like this guy. He is an example. The thing is, in general, with aging, right? Where we have so much ageism in male and female bodies in culture. And I want to encourage Shiva to also start educating more on longevity, because he defies aging. And I mean,
I love that.
My current partner, he's terrified at getting old, and I'm like, you need to meet people who are old, or as Shiva says, at level. Can we say your level? Or
I'm at level 58.
Level 58, age 58, but now he calls it level 58. That's super vital. I mean, he's like, I don't know, 25-year-old in his physiology, I would say. It's amazing. The amount of life force dripping from this man is incredible. And I've known him for 10 years, and I see him getting, I don't want to say younger, because it's an ageist thing to say for me. It's not about being younger. I see you more connected to yourself, more vital than 10 years before. And you're mastering yourself, and that's what getting older for me is about, is like getting better, getting more wise, getting healthier and stronger and fitter, rather than declining. I feel like there's a certain point that we societally agree on that we just start letting ourselves go.
Exactly.
And I don't want to play that story.
Exactly.
And it's not about looking young. It's not about being young. It's about being who you are and where you're at in your most optimal state. And I'd love to change the narrative around that a lot.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Kick out all the mainstream narratives around that. Yeah. Everything is pushing you towards retirement, to kind of looking at yourself as something that is decaying and so on.
Yeah.
And that's not true at all. There are a few things that you have to do for that. And one of them is like optimize your diet, keep on optimizing your body to stay really in good shape and good health. This is one. But then, realize something. It is that as you mature, as you go through the stages and levels of life, then you become wiser and wiser. I have tools today that I didn't have last year. I have tools. I'm way more equipped than I was like when I was 20 years ago, in terms of understanding, in terms of wisdom, in terms of navigating, connecting with a woman, in terms of how I navigate life, how I navigate challenges, and so on. So this maturity is like an asset that, you know, and on top of that, staying young. I mean, I go jog every day. I'm doing like an hour of training every day. So those are things that I encourage you. If you are having questions about that, feel free to reach out on my Instagram or wherever. But I want to tell you that there is a way of navigating it which bypasses all these narratives and mainstream narratives. It's like life is becoming better and better every year. And it's up to us to make it that way. The core element is that there are a few things as well that I want to say about that. Is that I am extremely disciplined.
You are.
Right?
That's
So
a
with food,
piece.
with nutrition, anything that is self-destructive, any substance, you know, drugs, alcohol, coffee, all that is out of my field. I don't touch anything that would be, decaying my body or decaying my mind at higher speed. So those are some elements, and the other ones is like vitality. Keep on, you know, removing the source of toxicity, detoxifying your body, but also detoxifying on an energetic emotional level. Stop engaging into conflicts, into toxic situations, and don't try to control other people's lives and things like that. So there are some very specific strategies that really help us stay focused on the big vision.
Yeah.
It's an exciting.
You're so good.
Yeah, love is a
Maybe-
drug. I like what
yeah.
she's saying.
Maybe we can wrap up
Yeah,
soon.
there were some questions over there.
Yeah, let's see. If you guys want to pop in a question or anything,
Yeah.
you can.
Go up.
At the very beginning, there was
Yeah,
a
you were asking
question.
me about whether this is a red hibiscus, right? This is a red
yes,
hibiscus.
Bali.
It's the flower of Kali.
If one's partner is a narcissist or mentally not well, how much should we give? That's a layered and complex question.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to go into that. That's like a whole unpacking, and I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
not do it justice with that question. Yeah.
Can I say a word about it?
Yeah, I also want to say a word, but you go.
Yeah. The only thing that I want to say about that is that you are not your partner's therapist.
Yeah.
So it's not your responsibility to fix them. It's not your responsibility. Don't project. Don't be in love with the potential. Be in love with the person that is right now in front of you. If that person is functional and you can have a great relationship and love them, if getting in love with the potential of what they could potentially become if they were doing all this work is a dream. Focus on the present moment.
For sure. And also, we always want our partner to be different than who they are, and we contort and adjust ourselves because we want to stay in love and we want to stay in connection. If it's like my partner is a narcissist, what should I do? It's like, am I feeling relaxed and safe and met in this relationship? Are we aligned? Do we have the same values? Are my needs being met? Can I meet their needs? Where do we sit in this? Rather than trying to calculate how we relate with someone. I think that's a piece that just comes up for me. And of course it's a lot more difficult when you're in the relationship. But as I've matured, I've just realized that if I'm starting to already get hypervigilant of how I'm relating with someone, it's not safe. And I only want to be in safe relationships,
Yeah,
basically.
beautiful. There was some more.
And sometimes I feel trapped in just giving and I can't really give. And
There was about.
I think that was the first question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, I feel so much resonance when Marnie said my pussy gets wet when I feel seen and safe too.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, this is one of my students. Oh, cool. As a female, I'm experiencing just this, impulse to experience multiple erotic encounters. Okay. These are just comments. Okay, let's see if there was any questions down the bottom. I don't even have you on Instagram actually. We'll connect Shiva's thing here, but maybe you wanna write your name here?
Yeah, Vital Coaching.
Oh, Vital Coaching.
Yeah, very
Okay.
easy.
Vital
In one word.
Coaching. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my name is Shiva Rajaya.
Shiva Rajaya. Cool.
Here we go. This is fun. I like doing this with you.
Yeah. Shiva and I used to make videos years ago as well, talking on different topics.
Yeah,
I'd love
exactly.
to see them again.
Oh
I think
my
I
God.
would be so
It's all
like.
on my YouTube channel.
Oh my god, I don't even know if I could watch it because I was so much younger back then.
We're discovering the early stages.
Oh
Every
my
10 years
God.
we'll do a live.
Yeah. Yeah. Where is Bali? Bali is in Indonesia. Yeah. Yeah, we're in the amazing, you can see here, we've got this most majestic view here. Yeah, I think we can
Yeah.
wrap up
Wrap it
here.
up. Yeah.
Thank you, Shiva. I love you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Mm.
And if you have been listening to this video, just a quick word of advice and sympathy for where you are at. The journey is beautiful and magnificent, and there is always a way to upgrade, keep on moving forward and explore. If you're watching this, it probably means that you're interested in this whole field of personal and spiritual development, and
Yeah.
I encourage you to keep on moving forward. And feel free also to reach out. I really offer support if you have just a question or something like that. We can dive into remote sessions if you want as well.
He's
And,
amazing.
yeah,
He's
just come to my
amazing.
events, come to my
Yeah.
places, and this woman is offering an amazing somatic facilitator or somatic.
Yeah,
how do you call it?
my school, Somatic Institute for Women, I run year-long teacher trainings on somatics for women.
Yeah.
So, and I also run shadow work facilitator trainings. I'm giving that in a month in the Netherlands. I have another project called Erotic Love, which explores transpersonal eroticism. There is a lot going on in my field.
this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And she's been maturing, and you have a psychotherapy background, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really grounded into both science and mainstream, and also from the hippie propaganda tantra movement. So it's very very integrated with lots of powerful tools. So well done, Mani.
Well done,
So
Shiva.
proud of you, what you have become over the years.
Thank you.
This is powerful, and there is so much more to come. Okay, we love you. What do? Wait, Jaya.
Ready?
Jaya, 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 Jaya. Do that 5 times in the morning when you wake up. Your
Sorry.
neighbors will love it.
You have to do that every time you see Shiva. Jaya, Jaya, Jaya!
Exactly. It means victory.
Alright. Bye, everyone. I don't know how to end it. Cool.
Just sweet.
Awesome, babe.
Let me see.
Yay.